Sunshine Cathedral is a different kind of church, where the past is past and the future has infinite possibilities. This is the day our God has made.
The good news according to Luke. Now every year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up as usual for the festival. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my family's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and years and in divine and human favor. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Let us continue in the spirit of prayer. We delight, O God, to come together in your house, to learn, to love, to share, to grow. These are sacred moments that we share and treasure in our hearts. Amen.
Now, I know that I am usually the anchor preacher for the year and the last one for the year. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or as it just is, but I'll take it as just a good thing. And I thought all the sermons I've done over the years at the end of the year kind of reflected here and gone there with it. But this year, I thought I would end the year by going through every Sunday of the year and giving you a critique of some of the stuff that's happened. So sit back, get ready. We'll break out the popcorn and we'll just have a good time with all the stuff from this past year that we've gone through. But I also know that this is the time of the year that many of us become very reflective about our lives, our losses and our gains. And yet, for me, I honestly can say that I can barely remember 2018. Not because, things just were so devastating or so awful, anything like that, but to me, it's just gone by so fast. It's like it was one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and lo and behold, here we are at the end of yet another year. And I get that there were certain moments of sadness, and some of those were healed by periods of joy. There was moments of dragging through a day thinking it would never end, and I would just go sit down in Reverend Ann's office and start drinking tea and helping prolong her day because the day seemed like it would never end. And we would sit and we would talk. And then there was days I would take popcorn down to her office and we would sit and talk because I didn't want the day to be over. Just those kind of days. For some, there have been job losses and job finds. For some, there has been losses of significant others, while others have found the joy of love all over again, and again, and again, and again, until the U-Haul finally showed up and everything worked out. Yeah, some of you are laughing about that, so you can resonate with that. I get it, I understand. And then there's all the political stuff that has gone on this year. I'll tread lightly here. But in the sometimes ugly world of politics, there have been challenges. A few blessings perhaps, but also a lot of mess. And there has been, as this movie title suggests, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And yet, we live on to do our part to ensure that there is liberty and justice for all, and all means all. Now, whether we remember each detail of 2018 or not, to have lived at all is an achievement. To have loved is a blessing. To have hoped is a joy. And so as I near the end of 2018, with more celebrations than regret, I hope you can say the same as well, regardless of the current situation we may find ourselves in. And maybe the best part of bringing 2018 to a close is to remind ourselves we ain't dead yet and we still have work to do. There has been the ups and downs of this year can be like tuning a radio. Sometimes we have to get through some of the annoying static before we can find the right frequency and enjoy what we're looking to listen for. But before there was auto tunes on radios and devices that began with an I, there was this thing called the transistor radio with a dial on it. Anybody remember those? And as a kid, I remember each of my siblings got one at a certain age. They each got their own radio. My parents had their own radio, but you dare not touch that radio. So, in my mind, getting a radio meant that you had reached a certain milestone in life in my family, but I later learned that my siblings just really didn't like listening to each other's music. One of my sisters loved to listen to that sappy love book reading on the radio. Another one used to love to listen to talk shows. Another one loved country western music. And of course, there was the gospel hour on Sunday morning. You did not touch anybody's radio on a Sunday morning because of the gospel hour. But when I got my own hot red radio, somehow classical music and some show tunes became my favorite. And really, my family should have guessed then that something was really up with me, even at that young age. But anyway, the old radios required you to turn the dial ever so gently to tune in to a specific station. Reverend Dr. Paul Gratz from Atlanta recently wrote, "Tuning was the key to bringing in the signal. In our spiritual life, we have to do the same precise tuning as well. Dial it in until you feel the connection. And once you've made this connection, the world around you will respond differently. Tune in. After all, the music of life really is love." Well, in our scripture reading today, that is what we find Jesus doing, tuning in to connect with the beginning of his journey in God's house. As responsible adults, we must tune in and be connected for the well-being of society's children. Like the child in our story gospel reading today, we are to watch over them and protect them and teach them and nurture them and to nourish them. Do our part to ensure that they are healthy and safe. This child, Jesus, went missing. People were concerned. They did what they could to find him, and sure, his parents were upset, but others did what they could to help, as it should be. In my day, growing up was hard in my eyes back in 1967. But when I look back and think about how I grew up, our family systems and our family system of values in our 4-room house with a tin roof, I knew that I had it so easy in some regards compared to the way life is being lived today. I had love, I had structure, order, faith, concern for justice and decency. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot. With the help of the family and the community, I grew up knowing that I had a place in the world, and everyone needs to know that they have a place in this world that is safe just for them. I learned to form relationships, set priorities, make choices, and accept their consequences. And I learned that character will sustain us in good times as well as bad times. Along the way, like any little child growing up, I made mistakes, of course. I've been lost, sidetracked, and sometimes I just needed to try all over again. We didn't have the reboot icons back then like we do today, or the Alt-Control-Delete like we do now. But still, we knew that sometimes we just had to start all over. Ultimately, growing up meant moving on. This could be a geographical move, but whether we move to the next town or the next state or even to another country, we also had to move spiritually as psychologically. We had to take what we learned at home and apply it, sometimes in new ways, to the world we would now be exploring as adults. Jesus himself did a little exploring in our story today. And it is no surprise that Mary and Joseph would be in a panic when they discovered that Jesus was not with them in the group that they were traveling with. With great anxiety, Mary and Joseph searched for him. And 3 days later, the one who was lost had been found. Mary's first words are, "Child, why have you treated us like this?" Now, let me translate that into how Mama would have said that. "Boy, where have you been? Get lost if you want to. You can just stay lost the next time, and don't you dare talk back to me. Just remember, I brought you into this world, and I will take you out of this world." Your father and I face angels, and I placed your wrinkled red behind in a feeding trough when I went into labor on a road trip. And we fled as refugees to Egypt to try to keep you safe. only to have you stay behind somewhere without telling anybody. Why? I wish you would say something back to me. Don't you think you're too messianic for a butt whooping because I give you one right here and right now in the house of God? But in this story, Jesus isn't the one who was lost. He was beginning to dial into what it meant to be in the house of God. Growing up spiritually, Jesus shows, involves leaving our comfort zone and to make others uncomfortable sometimes. Yet spiritual growth means letting go of what may feel safe and familiar to us and reminding ourselves that the best past is past and that our future has infinite possibilities. And this letting go is a necessary detachment if we are to dial in to the love and the likeness of God on our journey. Now, there are many kinds of houses that we may find ourselves in from time to time. And when I say houses, I mean church houses. But first, I want to start with the church house that we know as Sunshine Cathedral. What makes this house unique? Well, you see, what makes this house unique is that from time to time, you may see a drag show. And I don't mean just on Sunday mornings. You may, from time to time, see the senior minister dancing and across the floor and falling on the floor and many other things. You may see Twyla ready to leap out of the choir loft. And if you look close enough, you may even see Rosine cutting her eyes at her like Rosine can only do. You may even attend an event that leaves the light shears swinging and you swaying. You may even see our minister of connections and our director of lay and volunteer ministers and our social justice minister and our facility manager, even in drag sometimes. Oh, wait, that haven't happened yet. Maybe I'm prophesizing now for a fundraiser for 2019. Just stay tuned for that one. But there are many kinds of houses that we may find ourselves in from time to time. Houses of uncertainty, houses of fear and anger and prejudice, houses of grief and sorrow, houses of shame that others have built for us because we were LGBTQ or divorced or had HIV or other STIs, or we were a single parent or made procreative choices that others tried to deny us. Some of us have found ourselves in houses that weren't safe or even joyful. Some of the houses we've inhabited may have made life seem small and treacherous or even empty. The problem is that sometimes we grew too comfortable in those houses thinking that that was as good as it could get. But these houses of limitation are not our true houses. They are not the house that God intended for us to be in, and we need to burn those houses down today. Oh, we may have to pass through them every now and then, but yet when we dial into who we are and we realize that we are not meant to stay there because life is a journey and we must keep on the journey and we must keep going forward. Because not every house is tuned into WGOD, but we can find our true home when we get to play with the dial and we can move through the static until we find our jam, that divine cool jazz, or our sacred show tunes, or our sanctified bluegrass. And we want Sunshine Cathedral to be God's house. Not God's only house, obviously, but certainly one of the places and one of the ways that God has made known in our world, in our community today. Everything we do is with the intention of letting the world know that this is God's house. And in God's house, you are loved just as you are, and there's nothing that no one can do anything about. We are dialed into God's house when we know that we have been feeding the hungry by preparing over 200 lunches a week and opening our own food pantry house right here in God's house. We are God's house when we are about providing clothes for those who need it in our community. We are God's house when we continue to be a home for 40-plus groups who are in recovery or for whatever they may need without judgment can come and feel at home on this campus. We are God's house when we can bless and celebrate the transgender children of God just as they are meant to be. We are God's house when we declare that love makes a family and no one can take that away from us. We are God's house when we can invest in a property that is used widely by our community. We are God's house when we offer worship to people wherever they are, no matter what their beliefs or doubts may be, to know that they are welcome in this place. We do a lot as God's house, and we have more to do, and we are committing to doing more in 2019. And as we prepare for a new year, let us prepare for ways to grow both spiritually and personally in God's house. And as we prepare for a new year, let us not be discouraged by the setbacks of this past year. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep our eye on the prize. And as the senior minister often says, there is good for us, and we ought to have it. Growing up is not about how old we are. It is really about moving into deeper and more authentic relationship with God, our world, each other, and most importantly, ourselves. My friends, we are God's children, and this is God's house, and where God is, all is well. Amen.
In your face, I see a lifetime. In this place, I feel at ease. Wallpaper peeling, paint wearing thin. Here's where I end and begin. I don't need a roof to say I'm covered. I don't need a roof to know I'm home. There could be a single shingle dangling overhead. I don't need a roof to make my bed. Close your eyes, I'm still beside you. No goodbyes needed today. Hear what the rain says. Know what it knows. After the rain, something grows. I don't need a roof to say I love you. I don't need a roof to call you mine. I don't need adventure in some faraway frontier. I don't need a roof to feel you near. All I need is you and you forever. All I feel is true and absolute.
Thank you for joining us today here at the Sunshine Cathedral. If you're ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, we invite you to stop by and worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. If you'd like to make a donation to the Sunshine Cathedral, or if you'd like to find out other resources that the Cathedral has to offer, please visit us at www.sunshinecathedral.org. Until the next time, we look forward to seeing you here at the Sunshine Cathedral.